Welcome to Mock Draft Monday. The bowl games just wrapped up and the national championship is tonight, so why don't we go over a few guys who rose their stock through the bowl games. I pulled 5 players whose stocks rose after the bowl games, and I'm going to determine who the ultimate stock riser is. I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to 5 NFL draft prospects whose stocks rose after the bowl game. Enjoy. I originally had Jeffrey Bassa in this position, but after hearing he was going back to school for another year, I went with a different defender who actually balled out on a bigger stage. Texas defensive lineman Byron Murphy II is 5th on this list. Up against a phenomenal Washington offensive line, he came up with 5 pressures which led the team, 5 hurries which led the team, and 2 defensive stops. Almost all season, he has been renowned as the second best defensive tackle on that team behind T'Vondre Sweat, a fellow 2024 draft prospect. And while Murphy is still behind him on basically every single big board, this game was a huge lunge towards the top. According to PFF, in the first 13 games of the year, Sweat outperformed Murphy in 8 of those 13 games. In the Sugar Bowl, Murphy was the better run defender and the better pass rusher, with run stuffs in key moments and 5 pressures on top of all of that. Off topic, he also had a rushing touchdown in this game, his second offensive touchdown of the season. One concern that I did have about this performance was his consistency in his win rate. Both Murphy and Sweat had the same pass rush win rate in this game, but when it came to non-true passing sets, Murphy actually struggled. 80% of those pressures came in true passing sets, while only 29.6% of his pass rush snaps were in those sets, making that only 1 pressure on 19 non-true passing sets. And that's the only issue I had with Murphy. He still outperformed Sweat at many levels. This great performance makes him number 5 on this bowl game stock risers list. Moving on to number 4, let's flip over to the other playoff game and talk about Michigan's Junior Colson. Trying to live scout both Jalen Milroe and Jermaine Burton was extremely difficult because of Michigan's phenomenal defensive performance. It can't be Mason Graham given that he's not eligible for the 2024 draft. It can't be Chris Jenkins because he didn't shock me in the past game. So we're going to go with Junior Colson, who shocked me in every aspect. In this game, Colson put up 11 tackles and didn't miss a single one according to PFF. He also had 1 single pressure and 4 pass rush snaps, but that single pressure turned into a solo sack of his own. In coverage, he allowed 2 receptions on 3 targets, but for only 6 yards. And he made 6 defensive stops, which was tied for the most on the team alongside fellow linebacker Michael Barrett. Colson was impactful everywhere on the field, and noting that he's been doing this almost all season, doing it on the biggest stage will help your stock rise. A huge reason for his appearance on this list is because according to NFL Mock Draft Database, he's been flirting with the top 100 for a while, and performing like he did is going to hopefully give him that boost into the top 100. But I think what gets me the most is that this linebacker group this year is pretty grouped together. The top linebacker in this class is Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who sits just inside the top 60, and Junior Colson sits at 115 right now. But with a few guys moving down like Peyton Wilson and Edgerrin Cooper, Colson has the opportunity to elevate himself towards the top of the linebackers. With all of this being said, all of it being very impressive, Colson makes his way to 4th on this list. At number 3 on this list, I'm going to pull out of the playoff games and the NY6 Bowls in general and talk about LSU versus Wisconsin. Let's flip over to the offensive side as Brian Thomas Jr. is 3rd on this list. Now, before I get slammed because Thomas is already a top draft prospect at the wide receiver position, trust me here, when you perform like he did, your stock is going to rise no matter where you are. In new LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier's first career start, Brian Thomas caught 8 passes on 13 targets for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns, Those 13 targets are the most of his career in a single game. This game was, in my opinion, the second most impressive game of the season for him, but that doesn't include the fact that Wisconsin actually has a very impressive secondary. He caught passes on 7 different Wisconsin defenders, and when you look back at the film, he truly was moved around to different places. He did only take 3 snaps in the slot though, which is a tad concerning given that he's done 11 in one game before. But his alignment versatility and his motioning upside is not why he made this list. He made this list because of how much he outperformed fellow LSU wide receiver Malik Nabers in this game. Obviously, LSU was trying to play it safe because Nabers didn't play nearly as many snaps as Thomas did, but when he did play, Nabers got shut down. 3 catches on 4 targets for just 23 yards. 1 contested target, no contested catches. Compare that to the 898 and 2 that Thomas put out, and yeah, Thomas very clearly had the better game. At the time of this recording, Nabers is currently 4th on the consensus big board, behind Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May, and Caleb Williams. Thomas Jr. is going up the big board already, but he's currently ranked 23rd. As a result of the bowl game, he's already passed Emeka Egbuka and is making his way towards Keon Coleman. This performance, being one where he outperformed his top 4 teammate, is going to be a huge look for scouts. With that being said, Brian Thomas Jr. made his way onto this list. Reverting back to the NY6 Bowls, but not to the playoffs, this player is currently projected to be drafted in the 6th or 7th round. I'm shocked to see it personally, as Mizzou running back Cody Schrader is a dog. Schrader has run for 6 straight 100-yard games, including a 200-yard game, but most importantly, he showed up against a top-tier run defense in the bowl games. 29 rushes for 128 yards and a touchdown, along with 3 rushes that went for more than 10. When we look at this streak of 100-plus yard rushing performances, it is a pretty mixed bag. All of these rankings are PFFs. South Carolina's run defense is 84th, Georgia's 22nd, Tennessee's 70th, Florida's 63rd, and Arkansas was 87th. All of these being out of 133 FBS teams. When it comes to Ohio State, they rank 10th in run defense, which is the best run defense that Schrader has faced all season. And despite the elevation of skill in the defensive line, Schrader was not fazed, and he had yet another elite performance. Behind all the basic statistics you see on a stat sheet, Schrader also broke 6 tackles, the second most that he's broken in a game this season. Going deeper into it, you can see how fantastic Ohio State's run defense is when you look at the yards after contact per run. He ran for 2.17 yards after contact per attempt, which is the lowest he's had in a game this season. So while he was able to break 6 tackles, he wasn't able to do much after breaking it. But that's to be expected when you play a top 10 run defense. What's not to be expected is going for 128 yards and a touchdown. It's not like he was held much either. He had 4.4 yards per carry, and he had a worse yards per carry against Middle Tennessee State. Against a defense that allows 3.4 yards per carry, 4.4 is really good, which is why Schrader finds his way to 2nd on this list. Before I get to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. Georgia running back Kendall Milton solidified himself as a draftable prospect after going for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns on only 9 carries. He showed some phenomenal elusiveness and overall athleticism, and the kid's only 21 right now. Cal cornerback Lumagia Hearns III put together an impressive performance against Texas Tech with 1 interception and 2 pass breakups. He's developed into a better corner as the season has come to an end, and while I do think he can benefit from 1 more college season, I think he's NFL ready. And 2 other honorable mentions in Oregon's Jeffrey Bassa and Alabama's Deontay Lawson make their way here after their impressive performances. Bassa had 9 tackles, 3 pressures, and 5 defensive stops, while Lawson had 8 tackles, 2 pressures, and 3 defensive stops. They both would have made this list if it wasn't for them deciding to go back to school instead of enter the 2024 draft. Those were the honorable mentions of the list. Now, who tops the list? Let's go back to the playoffs. biggest stage of his career, and he was easily player of the game in his respected game. 76% completion percentage, 430 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and some elite deep balls that set Washington up in the red zone. Of course, I'm talking about Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr., who used these games to skyrocket his draft stock. I just put out a Michael Penix Jr. scouting report last week, so if you're interested, take a look. For that reason, I won't go too deep into the traits of Penix, but I will explain how his draft stock rose. First off, he's already a highly touted NFL draft prospect. He came into the bowl games 29th on the consensus big board, and all of a sudden, he skyrocketed to 23rd, which is really impressive for a single game. This quarterback class is absolutely stacked, but there's one thing holding a lot of them back, and that is their age. Despite that, he's starting to move up pretty quick, and people are starting to discard his age. When you can perform as elite as you did against a defense as elite as you played, you're going to go up no matter what. Besides, he will be a younger 24-year-old rookie, and compared to other prospects in this class, that's actually pretty good. So, because of his performance on the big stage, and because of his arm talent and accuracy, he finds his way going way up big boards at the moment, which is why he is number 1 on this bowl game stock risers list. Who do you think had their stock skyrocket after the bowl games? Let me know in the comments section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.